Hello, everyone, and welcome to, oh, wait, one more person here. Here we go. Admit. All right. Welcome to group coaching for tonight for the Yes Entrepreneur group. And tonight, our topic is going to be talking about expect and project. All right. So it's all about setting clear expectations and projecting confidence in business settings. That's going to be our overall theme for tonight. And before I dive into that though, I really want to take a moment and recognize that the majority of our members up to this date and time are basically what I would call solopreneurs. That's a big difference from going from that me to we, that solopreneur to the entrepreneur jump. And I think that a lot of our members are going to experience that. And so on the Young Entrepreneur website, we have a tab of a library of books that we recommend that we've read. And one of them on there is called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And it was the first business book that someone gave me as a gift when I said that I was starting my own company. And I have read it multiple times. I think it's worth mentioning. It's one of, in my opinion, the best business books. And it's not new, it's old, it's been out for a long time, but I'll give you the summary. So Michael Gerber talks about the difference between working in your business versus working on your business. He says when you first start a business, when you're a solopreneur, you're working in your business all the time. He uses the example of a bakery. And he said this woman started a bakery and she was baking cakes and baking cupcakes and she owned the business, but she really just created a job for herself. And she was the toughest boss that she would ever have, right? Because she's driving the ship and she's taking out the trash and she's baking the cookies and she's, doing the marketing materials and she's doing the sales. And it's like, wait a minute, that's a job. When you start a business, the ultimate goal is that you are going to employ other people. The job of creating a business is to employ others. And that way you can work on your business versus always working in your business. So in this example, she needed to hire someone to help with the baking, hire someone to help with the cleaning, hire someone to help with the marketing. So she could then focus on the bigger picture or focus on managing them or all that. So though these are stages of the entrepreneurial journey. And I think it's good to sometimes take that step and say, okay, let me set clear expectations, not just with my clients or not just with my staff, but let me also set some clear expectations with myself. You know, where do I want this to go? How am I going to get there? So confidence is very key for all of us. And that old saying, fake it till you make it. Of course, we've all had those moments where that was incredibly important to project confidence in a business setting, right? But behind the scenes, you might kind of be like a duck on the water on a lake. And on the top of the lake, that duck looks really calm and really, really confident. But underneath the water, those legs are kicking and you're doing everything you can. So keep that in mind tonight as you're setting yourself on this journey. So if you haven't already, pick up the book, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. All right. Now I have a question for the group, and you guys can put this in the chat if you want to. My question is, what books or movies can you think of where there's a confidence game going on, where confidence opened the door to whatever was ensuing in the movie or in the book? I'm going to give everybody a minute here just to see if people will put something in the chat. Oh, and I'm going to make balloons go. So that was cool. We'll see if I can do that again. Nope, maybe just once. Okay. Rocky. Okay. All right. Yeah. Traders. Oh, that's a good one. Okay. Some of the ones that came to mind for me were Catch Me If You Can. I thought that was a fascinating, game that he developed, based on sheer confidence. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels is an oldie but a goodie. Grifters is a good one. Focus is another one. If you haven't seen that with Will Smith, and even The Wolf of Wall Street is kind of a confidence game, right? So you're walking into these different environments and you're having a different self that you're presenting. So anyways, think about those. Think about where you are in your entrepreneurial journey. Think about other examples of confidence that have been portrayed. And now let's talk. We're going to have three main topics for the night tonight. First, we're going to talk about setting expectations. All right. So let's think about that with, I know I mentioned tonight, setting, importance of clear goals with yourself, right? Like emphasize like how setting clear, measurable goals can, guide you on your entrepreneurial journey. Okay, great. Like we should all, as a barrier to entry, have established some goals. Okay. But how are you, as you're building your company, as you're employing other people, are you setting clear goals for your employees and encouraging them to be on a growth trajectory? So a couple of years ago, I started this thing with Sunday Brunch. Now, obviously, we do annual reviews with our employees, and no employee is ever going to let me forget their annual review because they want their annual pay raise. And I mean, by the way, like they don't always go hand in hand. They don't have to. In my world, they do. So that doesn't mean that's right for you, but that's what we do. But we also started a new tradition, which was our big goals meeting. And it can happen most of the time totally separate than your annual review. It's your big goals. I don't want to talk about your goals for next month or 6 months from now. This is the big goal meeting. This is in 5-10 years. Where do you want to be? What do you want your life to look like? Where do you want to live? What kind of house do you want? Do you want to have kids? Like the big things, the big life-changing events that you would like to see in your future. And how can Sunday Brunch, our team, my mentorship, how can we help you get there? How can we support you? So I think clear goals for you, and as you manage more people, clear goals for them. Now, my way of communicating this is very open, very vulnerable and transparent, because I felt like as a young up and coming business person, I didn't know what I didn't know. And I feel like a lot of people are in that boat. They don't know what to ask for. So I'll guide people in advance before their dad or their grandpa or their aunt or their uncle says at Christmas dinner or something, "Hey, have you thought to ask about getting a health and wellness stipend?" And they're like, "Oh, I don't know. I didn't even know that was a thing," right? Or, "Oh, did you ask for maybe equity in the company?" And they were like, "Oh, I didn't know I could do that," right? There's all these tips and tricks to, asking for things, and you sometimes don't know what to ask for. So I have a tendency to work with the people who are loyal on our staff. And during our big goals meeting, I'll listen to them and I'll hear what they're laying out of their goals very respectfully of what they identified that they think they want. And then I'll say, well, what about maybe, do you also want this? Do you also maybe want equity in the company? Do you maybe also want that a $500 a month health and wellness bonus? Or do you want a company car? Or, it's like, oh, I didn't realize I could ask for that. Well, sure you can. And I'm already thinking in my mind if I'm mentally prepared to give it to them now, or more likely set goals of what it's going to look like for them to achieve those things so that they know that they've earned it. I'm not just giving it away, but I want them to dream big. I want them to, and I want to manage their expectations that I'm going to guide them and lead them down that path. Okay, so that's employees, that's company culture, that's trust, that's living a life of service. Now, setting expectations with clients is a whole other ballgame, right? Most of us probably have clients that want things yesterday. They ask for it today. Well, when's it due? Oh, yesterday. Or today, immediately. Okay. Well, this is when it comes time to set healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries with with our clients. And sometimes I find it personally easier to set healthy boundaries with my clients than I do with the interpersonal relationships in my life. I feel like if my mom or my sister or my boyfriend, if they ask for something, I have no boundaries for them. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, um, what's that called when I'm unconditionally gonna just say, okay, but not saying that's the answer. And I'm trying not to do that as much, but for my clients, I feel like I'm better at setting expectations, hearing them, receiving the message, telling them what's possible, when it's possible, how it's possible, what it's going to cost them. Or, those are the conversations that you can't shy away from with your clients more so than anybody, because you don't want them to, you want to set a precedent that's okay. Let's say you have a client that wants a press release and you're like, okay, great. All right, I'm gonna do you a favor and write you a press release. And you're like thinking to yourself, well, that could be like, $1,000 project. And then they're like, oh, I want it on the wire. And you're like, oh, okay, I'll put it on the wire for you. And then you're like, well, that was another like $1,500. And you're like, wait a minute, I can't just be giving all this away for free. This stuff costs money. I have to communicate that with the client. And by the way, I also need to charge a markup for my time and a markup for my service. And, you know, have those open, honest dialogue conversations with the client. So, all right. So we're setting expectations. We're setting expectations with ourselves. We're setting expectations with our employees, with our clients, and in our interpersonal lives. We're trying to be transparent and thoughtful and, you know, also realistic on kind of like, what these things are going to cost or what the timing is going to take. And this will build this will build trust, and this will build good precedent, and this will build ultimately a good reputation. You guys know that most of the time I have these calls and I have a presentation and I have slides, and I 9 times out of 10, I'm going to bring it back to your personal brand, but it's true. All of these things do go to build your reputation. So as you're setting clear expectations, projecting confidence in business, you're doing it with a strong foundation to stand on. So that was the first point. First point, it's all about how you're setting those expectations. All right. Now let's talk about confidence. Now, is it going to be that like con man confidence, the dirty, rotten scoundrels, catch me if you can, grifters confidence, or is it going to be like, I loved some of the other examples like Rocky or Field of Dreams or Rudy? That's so funny because it's not where my mind was. I mean, that level of confidence, came from a different place, but I like it's a more soulful place. I think that is really interesting that our group went there. I like that. So there's a few areas of confidence that I want to kind of talk about tonight. So one of the things that you'll notice, whether someone's presenting in person or on a Zoom call or they're chatting with you, right? Their body language and their tone of voice. So last Thursday, I was presenting to a group of 500 people. It was an event for the SBA. And I was the second presenter of the day. And the first presenter, I really like her. She's a very smart lady. But she got up there on that stage. She hid behind the podium. I mean, not like literally hid, but cowered, sort of behind the podium the entire time. I was trying to do her a solid and take pictures of her while she was presenting. And it was very difficult for me to take pictures because she just stood there in one place in a monotoned voice, right behind her computer, and her voice kept shaking. And how do you think that audience felt? They felt uncomfortable. The audience is always cheering for the presenter. They want the presenter to do well. They want you to be comfortable up there because it makes them feel more comfortable. So then it was my turn to speak. I got everybody up out of their chairs. I had everybody stretch. And while I had everybody stretching and standing up for a minute, I had them think about something that they wanted to get out of the talk. And we made it interactive. I didn't stand behind that podium one time. I had the mic and I walked back and forth through that stage and I made eye contact with people and I called them out in a like an engaging way to make them part of it, because then they felt like they were, connected with me and connected with the information. And, you know, the posture, the eye contact, the gestures, that influenced how they not only perceived me, but how they perceived the information that I was providing to them. So that's really an important part of confidence. Verbal communication. Okay, so you're gonna, now that's the other thing. Maybe the girl that went before me, maybe she wasn't that confident in her material. Maybe her verbal communication was lacking and her body language was lacking because maybe she didn't know what she was going to be talking about. I was talking about social media for marketing. I feel like if those slides had gone dark and the electricity had gone out, I still could have given the exact same presentation because I know that topic inside and out. Just like if I was going to present on personal brand building, which I'm going to do tomorrow at a luncheon. And they were like, oh, I don't think we have slides, like a screen. I said, that's fine. We don't need it. No big deal. So you need to practice what you're going to say, whether you're walking into a business meeting or even if you're preparing to have I like to call it a feelings conference with your significant other, you should still think about, well, what does success look like in this feelings conference? What am I trying to get out of it? What are my talking points? What are my examples? What am I asking for? What do I want everyone to walk away feeling good about? So your verbal communication is going to require a little bit of prep. You're going to have to think it through. You're going to have to practice. I love that Alex Hormozy is always coming back to saying, like, you do more reps, do more reps. I love that scene in The Wolf of Wall Street where DiCaprio sits down on the phone with the penny stock guys, and he sells, look, with absolute confidence over the phone, like $5,000 worth of penny stocks. And that was because he had done so many reps. He knew his stuff inside and out. And so it came across with great confidence when he was, making the sales pitch. So when you're prepared for a meeting or a presentation or a negotiation or a feelings conference or whatever it may be in your life, or a review meeting with the people who work for you, you're prepared. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to get. So speak with great confidence. And you guys, you're all adults. You've all been doing this a while. None of this is your first rodeo. So this shouldn't be totally mind-boggling, but it might be a nice reminder. So, all right. The third area that I want to kind of dive into is aligning expectations and projections. So I know I always talk about personal brand building, but I think it's really important. So let's talk about how consistency plays into aligning expectations. So I feel very strongly that what you wear and how you present yourself impacts the way people are going to treat you. And it's going to impact the way that you treat yourself. One of the things that we haven't talked about yet a lot in this group is internal dialogue. And that is your self-talk. Now, a lot of women, I can speak to this. I imagine men feel this way too, but I don't have personal experience. But I know that a lot of women have struggle with negative self-talk. And that can be everything from, and these are mean thoughts that you would never say to a friend. These are like, oh God, I look so fat in this, or like, I can't believe you ate that, or I can't believe you didn't, do your workout, like, oh, you're failing here, or you made the milkshake with the wrong almond milk for your daughter, and yeah, I mean, you suck at being a mom, or you suck at this, or you're late. I mean, it's just, and it compiles, and all of a sudden your self-esteem, and it's like you've now consistently talking shit to yourself all day, every day. So one of the biggest takeaways that I had from the 75 Hard program, which, just for those who don't know what it is, who might be watching this later, it's 2 45-minute workouts a day, one outside, 10 pages of reading every day from a book, like a business book, a nonfiction. You drink a gallon of water, you take a progress picture, no cheat meals, no alcohol. Okay. All of that to say that the number one thing I took away from that program was positive self-talk. I went from beating myself up all the time to like, oh yeah, I read my 10 pages. Oh yeah, I drank my gallon of water. It was amazing after 75 days of all of these little wins and how consistent I was, that I felt like, well, if I can be consistent with those things, well, I'm surely I could be consistent with this bigger thing, whether it's like they asked at school, like, well, will you be room mom? Or will you chaperone this trip to DC? Or will you help with the yearbook? Historically, I would have been like, gosh, that mom who made her, the shake with the wrong almond milk and didn't do the laundry and left the gate open for the dog. And oh my God, like, no, she couldn't do it. But this lady who took her progress picture, remembered to drink her water, read her 10 pages. Yeah, she could do it. So then I started having this consistency in other parts of my life. Well, okay, I can do it. Now all of a sudden, my internal monologue is, you can do it. You can do it. All right. So then how do you think that it reflected externally? Well, then all of a sudden, everybody around me started thinking, well, if she can do it, I can do it. And my favorite part was other people started telling me that I inspired them to have better self-talk about themselves. And it was like, all right, like I was at book club and I was like, oh, I'm not drinking, I'm just gonna have water. And they were like, oh, I'm not gonna drink either. It's like, oh, I didn't anticipate that. It started a trend. It started bringing out the best in other people that then could then behave the best in their lives. So now all of a sudden, the expectation when I showed up at book club or when I showed up at school or I showed up at work wasn't of self-doubt. It was of consistency. I can consistently show up and deliver for myself, for my kids, for my partner, for my work, and other people are going to be doing that too. So it's going to breed like a domino effect of all of this goodness and this positivity. So um, I know I started by talking about putting yourself together. And I'm going to share a little story here. So my very best friend growing up, since we were 8 years old, um, and I mean, we played soccer together and we went to college together and roommates and in each other's weddings and all the things. All right. She's amazing. She, since we were young, used to get up and get ready for the day. And she learned it from her mother. And that meant like brushing her hair, like maybe putting on lip gloss or a mascara. Like, doesn't have to be a full blown set every day, but like put herself together, got dressed. And I came from a household where you didn't get ready every day. Like it was totally normal to have pajama days where you didn't get out of those pajamas all day. You didn't shower that day. And maybe the day after that, I don't know, it's kind of loosey-goosey, like if you felt like it. And I took me a while, but then it clicked more recently. I do that now. I get up and I get ready for the day every day. I mean, unless I'm sick or, something like that, it's extenuating circumstances. But otherwise, when you're ready to show up, you're going to be putting yourself together. You're going to be doing it consistently. The people in your life are going to know that. So let's say someone asks me, hey, Rachel, or, you want to go grab a coffee? Or, hey, Rachel, you want to go ready for lunch? They know that I'm going to be ready to go. It's not like I'm like, oh crap, I'm in my pajamas and it's 11 and I hadn't thought about the fact that someone might ask me to coffee later. So, show up, put yourself together, have that positive self-talk. And, this is going to align your expectations. It's going to align with your projections. It's going to align with the expectations you're setting for the other people in your life who are around you and the ones you're setting for yourself. So see how we're kind of like making a circle here. They're all connected. All right. Now my best friend, I've never said this out loud, but I guess she was a role model for me in that way. And we have different role models in our lives that are going to encourage us and encourage our behaviors. They're going to show us a way that we could do it that maybe is aspirational, right? Or motivational at the very least, right? And then there's going to be people who role model in the opposite way. And you're going to see like that mom rolling into school pickup who's been in the same pajamas for 2 days. And you're going to be like, oh, I hope she's okay. I hope that's all right. But but it's just interesting because you're going to see examples of things that you want and things that you don't want. And that goes for business meetings, that goes for just how you're showing up in your day-to-day life. So that feedback loop of doing it consistently is really, really important. And so I want to say that. And then our team dynamics are interesting too. For Sunday brunch, we do, I'm going to talk about social media for a minute. We do batch content creation like 4 times a year, where we get together with a videographer, photographer, and we film our content. And when we first started doing this, the very first time, um, I showed up with probably, I don't know, like 20 suit jackets and like 30 pieces of jewelry and like 12 different pairs of shoes, like a full-on wardrobe, rolling rack. I mean, the whole thing, right? And my team was like, oh, you said like bring extra options. We didn't know that you meant like a whole closet. And I said, that's okay. I brought enough to share. And like, but then I realized, okay, like I need to tell them, or I need to teach them and train them what my expectation is. If we're going to be changing outfits all the time, all right, like that means bring at least 4 pairs of shoes, or that means, be ready for all these different situations. And they were all business related. Now we've evolved the brand, and sometimes we do something related to health and wellness and something related to fitness, but that's because we purposefully, consciously chose to make that part of our brand. But that wasn't an accident. That was something that required some thought and some foresight as well. So, but that way we're able to practice what we're going to say when we're doing batch content creation with confidence. We're going to practice those takeaways. I've noticed that when people are recording content, there's 3 types of content recorders. There's people who need it fully scripted and on the teleprompter. And they just get super nervous in front of the camera. And they, like, even if they really know their stuff, they really need it scripted. So, okay, that's great. We need to know that in advance. We need to be able to script it and write you out so that you're set up for success that day. The second type of content creator is the person who they need the topic and maybe like 2 or 3 bullet points and the key takeaway. And they're like, oh yeah, I got this. Okay. And they're like those one take wonders, and they can just roll with it. It's like, oh, okay, great. That was easy. And the other ones are the people who kind of the unicorn, and I don't see them that often, but they're like, I just need a topic. You're like, okay, you can go under 60 seconds and have 2 or 3 points and a key takeaway with just a topic. Yep. Okay, great. All right. Prove it. So, we practice, we prepare. And I think that really helps for video production, for content creation, for meetings, for presentations, for reviews, for, all the different moments in your life. So I know that today, we're talking officially about setting clear expectations and projecting confidence, but I think my real big takeaway for you guys is, you know, you can't have clear expectations and project confidence if you don't do the pregame homework. You don't prep before the meeting, before the big game. I mean, you wouldn't show up to I played soccer, right? You wouldn't show up to play a team if you hadn't practiced the week before. Business, life is the same way. So you got to make sure that you're practicing, getting those reps in, and thinking about the type of outcome that you want. And having clear goals about how you want to get there. So the other thing I wanted to mention tonight is there was a good TED Talk. It's called Why Confidence is the Secret to Great Leaders at Work and Home. And this woman, Dr. Karen, she also wrote a book called The 3 Chairs. And I haven't read it yet. I just saw the TED Talk and I really liked it. But The 3 Chairs does look interesting. The subtitle is How Great Leaders Drive Communication, Performance, and Engagement. So if you're looking for a book that we haven't already recommended to you, kind of expand your knowledge base, feel free. Or maybe she covers everything from the book in the TED Talk. I don't know. But I did look into the 3 Chairs title because I thought that was sort of fascinating. The 3 chairs that she outlines are the insecure attitude, the middle one is the confident attitude, and the other one is the arrogant attitude. And so I think that is probably a unique perspective. I know tonight, I think I focused on the first two chairs of being insecure or being confident. I don't really play much in the arrogant attitude chair. It's just not my comfort space. Although I did have a really interesting new business call today with a gentleman who is solidly in the arrogant attitude space. And I don't know if he'll come on as a client, but if he does, it'll be real interesting. So I don't know exactly what to say about that one, except for I think I should probably read the book, find out more, prepare so that I can lead with confidence if I end up having to work with this person. So we'll see how that goes. But I know this was a little short tonight, and I feel like it was a little underwhelming because I didn't have slides, but hopefully all of the words, hit home and resonated, and the point is still coming across clear. Rod, am I clear on this, or am I missing a visual?
No, you're not missing a visual. And it's like you said, if the electricity went out, you could give the same presentation without the slides. And I think that's important. And I think also it makes us listen more carefully if we don't have some of the visuals. So I appreciate it and like it when it's there, but it's definitely not necessary you carried the day. And I've got several takeaways also.
Okay.
All right. So my first one is when you were talking about setting expectations and setting boundaries with clients. Here's what I remember about that is if we don't set expectations, we're setting ourselves up for failure. We really do have to set expectations with relationships, with boundaries, with clients, with ourselves, or we're setting ourselves up for failure. And that's like what is it? Failure to plan is planning to fail, right? It's really the same thing. So it is important. And the last thing we want to do is set our clients up for failure. So it's even more important. And that's what I fear about working with arrogant people is, you're never gonna, I don't know. I prefer not to work with them whenever possible. But you better read the book first and tell me what your takeaway is. I could learn something there. But I think that's very important that we need to know what our clients are expecting from us, and they need to know the boundaries, especially. And it's too easy to get carried away with that. Under confidence, I was thinking about another movie which is not on the confidence side. It's an oldie, but it's classic. Glengarry Glen Ross. If you haven't seen that's like almost Death of a Salesman. It's kind of dark, but you got the arrogance in there. You've got everybody. You've got all three chairs sitting there, and it's really an expose on people and people skills and sales and salesmanship. Which brings me to the other thing, which on the end here, aligning your expectations. What successful people do is they are good at showmanship, and that comes in belief in their product and delivery of that belief in the product, whether it's with slides and visuals and marketing, or how you dress, how you portray yourself, how you speak. But showmanship is that magic that puts it all together. You can have all the right ingredients, all the right knowledge, all of the right stuff, but if you can't package it properly, you're not going to be able to get the huge deliverable on it. And so we do need to practice that. And I'm one of those that, I'm casual. I live in Montana. I'm casual. I'm not walking around in Armani all day long. But I do have standards. It's easier for a guy, I think, to get lazy in this regard. We can get away with t-shirts and hats and holy jeans and rundown shoes. But and maybe this changed when I was in the public eye, when I was in public service and an elected official. I represented the people. I never went anywhere without having a jacket or dressed nice. I always had collared, button-down shirts. I mean, that was my standard. And last week was the first week on any of these calls, by the way, Heidi, and you called me out, but you complimented me. I was wearing a sweatshirt because I was literally doing yard work before the call, and I didn't change. And I felt bad about it until you said, gosh, I like the color. So, but again, that was out of my comfort zone. You will never catch me out on the streets unless I'm in my own yard. You won't catch me at a store or getting gas if I don't have, you know, a button-down shirt on. You know, it's just I'm not a foo-foo guy. I just that's not me at all. But I have a level of expectation for myself that I may meet my next client when I'm out putting gas in my car or at Costco. You know, you don't know who you're going to run into and what that is. And so I'm always ready. Even if I'm casual, I'm ready for the showmanship part to be on. Even if that's the first thing is, oh, excuse me, I was just working in the yard, ran into Home Depot real quick, right? You know, I'm going to make an excuse for my poor presentation if I know I'm not on my A game. So I think it's very important when we align those expectations. We all need to ratchet up our game, even if it's a little bit. And if it takes 75 hard to do it, you know, where we really go all in and do a makeover, a body makeover, a mental makeover, a physical makeover, but we need to ratchet it up that 1 degree. What are we doing different in all those areas of our life? So I think it was a great talk, and be the example of what you expect in other people. That's really what it comes down to, you know? So I thought it was great, Rachel. Thank you.
Okay.
I needed the refresher.
I love that you brought up Glengarry Glen Ross because I felt like I was forgetting a really good example. And that was it. And okay, in that movie, that's the ABC. That's when you get the always be closing. And that's when you get coffees for closers, right? Isn't there another really famous line from that movie too?
I just remember Alec Baldwin and the brass balls. But yeah, there's some great lessons in the movie. But those are the top takeaways right there.
Yeah.
Glenn
I'm
Gary
gonna rewatch
again,
it.
Glenn Ross. Here,
Yeah.
I'll put that in the chat too.
Yeah. And then I like what you said about setting expectations and boundaries. I thought that was great. Um, and then I know you're going to put the Glengarry Glen Ross in the chat. I'm also going to put the link to that TED Talk in the chat too.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Aaron Gordon about why confidence is a secret. Great leaders at work. And you know, I think it's fascinating, by the way, like they don't train you like this is not something you learn in school, right? Like, I just think it's just fascinating. Or they don't teach you how to be a good manager. You know, it's like, okay, I'm gonna just figure it out. You know, so I hope that these moments of sharing and vulnerability are helpful because you know, you're not the first person who's going to be going through it. You're not definitely not the last, and the world continues to change. I had a girl who, you know, we've got a core group of full-time people who work for Sunday Brunch, and then we've got the kind of temporary people, I like to call them. They're the ones who we're kind of trying out. And a couple of weeks ago, one of them quit because she said she doesn't want to work that hard. I said, well, what do you think you're going to do? She's like, I don't know, but this marketing stuff's hard. It's a lot of work. It's like, okay, best of luck. It's like I don't know what kids are being trained or taught or what their expectation is. But that girl, I mean, she's building and you know her reputation. So I'm like, okay, you know, whatever. But I just think it's fascinating how and maybe you guys are experiencing this too, a little bit of like the incoming, you know, new workforce is not quite as trained up. And maybe it's because they've been working for home at home for the last 4 years, you know, so they didn't have that office experience. But again, I think that's maybe just a place where we can help. That's probably a yes entrepreneur, you know, goal for the future, maybe or something.
Well, while we wait, if anyone else has questions, I will say that I've done a lot of research and used Chat GPT on this and say, what are the core elements that people need to know to be successful that are not taught in colleges and universities? And the list is extensive. And it's the stuff we're talking about tonight. So you're absolutely right. Kids are not getting this. Young people are not getting this. Most of us on this call, anyone who's over 30, has learned it the hard way, right?
Yeah.
They've already learned it the hard way. And we can better that game, because learning it the hard way is not the best way to learn it, right? Because it's like, if that's what we learned, how much have we missed? I can tell you, I've lived a long time, and I've had several successful careers, and I've missed stuff in every one of them. And so how can I bring that? How can I up the ante? How can I bring it up a notch? And and believe me, the next generation of successful entrepreneurs are going to be the ones that master these skills. That's what's going to take them to the next level. And even if you start dissecting all the, the influencers that are successful out there right now, like you just mentioned, Alex Hormozy and stuff, they figured it out the hard way too.
Yeah.
And they found their niche within an industry. And so what's our niche, right? What are we finding within ours? Because that's it. And they all have their own secret sauce. They all have their own specialties. And everyone on this call has their own specialties. I've talked to all of you, and I know what you do, and I know what your expectations for yourselves are. And it's not going to happen unless you attack it, and unless you start applying the things that we're talking about in a meaningful way in your business, in your home life, every day. And you'll notice differences like 75 hard, 30 days, 60 days. You'll turn back and you'll think, holy smokes, this has been a growth curve that sets you on a whole new trajectory. And we're doing it for the next generations. Notice I didn't say generation, generations.
Yeah.
Because things are so fundamentally flawed in this regard that it's going to take a long time to fix it. We're on an extreme course correction right now, and we have to be a part of it and be an active part of it. That's my stump speech for the night.
One of the things that I have found that people really struggle with, especially when they're in the solopreneur space, is writing a clear bio for themselves. Because people really struggle with the confidence to step back into the third person and say, okay, I can write something really glamorous, gorgeous, thought-provoking, generous about myself. People really can't do it. So my advice is, if you don't have an agency or you don't have a PR person, you don't have someone to write it for you, my advice is to think about someone that you look up to. A fictitious person, a real person, a combination of people. Think about people you look up to and pick someone. Your grandma, your grandpa, character from a TV show. Write them a bio. Write a bio about all the reasons why they're amazing and what they're all about, but they have your job. Then once you write that, then go back and make it for you. So it's a trick that we learned in PR, because nobody wanted to write their own bio, but everybody was happy to write a bio for somebody else on the team. So, but in this case, if you're a solopreneur, you're on your own, you don't have a team. So write it about somebody else. And then use this group, by the way, like ask us like, hey, I've got a bio. I'd love some feedback on my bio, or I'd love a polish on my bio, or, what do you think about this? So don't be afraid to ask us to be another set of eyes and ears. And when you have those tools, like a solid bio or solid social media, like little write-up on your homepage, right? Like, you're going to feel good about that. And we want you to feel good about it. We want you to be able to feel confident when you go into a meeting, knowing that you've got that foundation set. And I think I may have mentioned this before, but all the people in your life really fall into 4 categories. Okay. You've got the cheerleaders. The cheerleaders are the people that are going to tell you that it's amazing, no matter even if it's crap. Okay. And there's a time and a place for cheerleaders, and we love them. I mean, like, oftentimes you hear people say, well, my best friend is a cheerleader for me, or my mother is a cheerleader for me. Like, they're just going to say it's great. Don't ask them to read your bio. They're going to think it's great, regardless if it is or not. Then that's wonderful. If you're looking for someone to stroke your ego, then ask them. Okay. Otherwise, let's talk about the other people. So you've got the cheerleaders, you've got connectors. Connectors are people that, you ever met somebody who's like, oh, I got a guy. Like, oh, I need a jeweler. Oh, I got a guy. Oh, I need a buyer written. Hey, I got a guy who'll do that for you, right? You got that connector, the I got a guy person. All right. Don't ask them either, because they're going to pass you over to somebody else that they know who can do it. Then you've got your experts. Your experts are the people that you're going to ask to read your bio. They're going to give you their unbiased opinion. It might not be sugar coated. It might not be cheering you on. It might have changes. Try not to take it personal. They're trying to be honest with you and use their expertise to help you get to the next level. So ask the experts. And then the fourth group of people that we all have in our lives are the aspirational mentorship people in our lives that we look up to. And we may or may not know these people. It could be like a famous person, or it could be someone who like runs an organization and you look up to them. You probably don't want to ask them to read your bio. Those are the people you want to turn your bio into once it's amazing and perfect and perfected by the expert. You know, then you give it to the person that you look up to, and when you apply for that job, or you apply to be on the board with them, or those sorts of things. So think about those groups of people as you're asking for another set of eyes. We are happy to fill that expert role. We're also sometimes happy to put the hat on and be the connector if that's what you need. So, I think that's the great thing about having, Rod and Jim and I is, we can have different hats at different times.
You're right, Rachel. And I'll just say too that there's a difference, and it kind of goes with your different kinds of people here. There's a difference between a proofreader and an editor. A proofreader can find grammatical mistakes and misspellings and punctuation and things like that. An editor is going to go deep. They're going to say, nah, your thought process is wrong in this chapter, and you should put chapter 4 in chapter 1. And an editor can rearrange everything you've done and make you totally mad, right? And so find a balance between those. That expert, you might turn it over to your cheerleader for the proofreading, but you need the expert for the edit. You really do. And I've helped you, Rachel, with your book, and Jim with his, and I went through, and I know that there were things that got missed even after all that. And when I wrote my book, I had, I think, 3 different proofreaders and 1 editor, and there are still things it's like, I should have done that differently. Yeah, we can always do better, but reach out and keep moving forward. That's the main point. But reach out is the number one thing. So I think that it's absolutely great advice.
Yeah, cool. Well, all right, it's 5:51. We have 9 minutes left officially. I wonder, Alex, Heidi, you guys want to chime in? You guys want to talk about?
Okay, yes, I have a question. The E-Myth, is it revisited? Why most small businesses don't work? And what is that, by Michael Gerber? Is that the one?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Great.
I have a story for you, just a quick one.
Yeah.
Like when you talked about for success, to be really like to practice, and that, practice the production. Here's a story that I think is amazing. Of course, I'm a little bit biased, but my son plays for the Black Knights at West Point, a D1 division football. And so they went in to go play against Air Force at the Broncos Stadium. Jake plays fullback, running back. He got put on scout team as a freshman. So I don't know if you know what a scout team is. I did not know this. I'm a football mom twice over. That means that he has to watch film like the Air Force running back over and over again. Then he has to act and play like the Air Force running back. So then he puts in hundreds of reps against his team, them brutalizing him as the Air Force running back. So they practice and they practice and they practice. So they go into this game. Jake gets to play as a freshman for his team, West Point's Army Black Knights. And because they practice so hard against him, they get to win that game. But he also got to play in that game as a running back. So he got to not only know his salt, but he got to be really a pivotal part for their win because they got to know, because running backs are usually the ones that get those yards and those scores, the receiver, the running back, and such like that. So I think we could tie that in, like that practice is so important, you know, for all of us in our business, but it's kind of cool. That was a story. Anyways.
I like it. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
Right.
I had to put that in the chat too. That's right out of The Art of War. You know, you got to know your enemy. You know, you've got to know your competition, you know, even if, you know, if it's a friendly competition, you have to know who's in the game
mhm.
and study them. You know, who's successful doing what you want to do. Study them. What a great lesson. Perfect story to illustrate that, Heidi.
Yep, that was really
Also, Rod, I just wanted to add on, not only am I offering for anybody that's here locally the InBody scans, but I'm also offering my services as a health and wellness coach, personal trainer, and nutrition coach. That's my bread and butter. That's my foundation. I take people from where they are and I help them to become the best version of themselves. So I'm offering my services to anyone that's here on me. So reach out, anyone.
Yeah.
Awesome.
See if I can get the balloons to go again. I don't know how all right.
Look at,
There we go.
you
Thumbs
can
up.
do that.
Oh,
Is that a
You did
thing?
it. You did it.
Yeah.
How do you, is there an app for that or what?
I think if you just hold it there, it'll go. I
Learning
don't,
something new every day.
Wow, mine didn't work.
let's see. Sometimes I get the balloons to go. Nope. All right. That was it. Anyways.
All
All right.
right.
Let's end on that note.
Perfect. Everybody, it's always a pleasure to see you. Great job tonight, Rachel.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.